What if there was a way to bring a sense of calm and focus into your classroom or home with no extra time, cost, or space needed? Today's conversation unlocks how kids' yoga and mindful breathing can help make that happen. Welcome to Educate and Rejuvenate, the podcast, episode 156, Kids Yoga 101, Simple Breathing and Mindfulness for Every Teacher with Giselle Shardlow. Let's go! Welcome to Educate and Rejuvenate, the podcast to help you revitalize your teaching, renew your spirit, and reignite your passion for life. I'm your host, Kelsey, a former teacher, current homeschool mom, published author, and certified life coach. Whether you are a teacher in a traditional classroom, homeschool from your kitchen table, or anywhere in between, I am on a mission to help you not only survive as an educator, but thrive. Get ready to uplevel your skills with incredible insights from guest experts and discover the missing piece, rejuvenating yourself. Are you ready to both educate and rejuvenate? Let's go. I am so thrilled for today's podcast episode because today we're talking about kids yoga, and I love yoga. I've just started really diving into it this year, as you'll learn more in this interview, but it's about so much more than poses. If you've ever thought yoga was just about poses or a workout, it's not. So think again. Today we're exploring how something as simple as a breathing exercise can help transform your classroom or your home, support emotional balance for both you and the kids, and even help kids to focus better. So you don't want to miss the easy to use strategies that Giselle and I will be talking about today. But before we dive in, I wanted to let you all know a few exciting updates that are going on. And of course, what I've been talking about a lot over these past few weeks is Educate and Rejuvenate, the book, because it has been such a huge project the last couple of years, and it's some of my best work yet. I would honestly say it is my best work yet. If you've been enjoying this podcast, the book just takes it all to the next level. And I'm not just saying that because I think that it really was a deep personal development journey writing the book, but really thinking about you as I did. But I'm also getting tons of feedback flowing in. I've actually gotten some private emails that are a little more personal than what has been shared on Amazon reviews about how this book has touched teachers and parents' lives. And it really just warms my heart to see how it's making a difference for you. And that's why I wrote it. If this book helped just one person, it makes it worth it. But I also know that because it's so powerful, I want to help it to get in the hands of as many teachers and parents, homeschool parents, as possible. I want to share why, though. Share a little bit more about a transformation yet another teacher has seen. So here is what Mischief Travie on Amazon had to say. She called her review beyond helpful. It says, "It has barely been the first quarter of the new school year, and I already feel at the end of year tired. This book came just in time as I question my career choice. I get to sit back and rethink my emotions and how I can improve, and this book has helped me to find that passion for teaching again. Oh, I'm still tired, but doing the exercises has allowed me to remind myself why I went into teaching. Great community group too. Can't do it without the Facebook group and support we have for each other. This is a must-read book. 5 out of 5, 5 stars. So thank you, Mischief Travie. Reviews like this make such a difference for authors. So if you have been reading the book, if you've been enjoying it, and you have a copy, but you haven't left a review yet, make sure to go to Amazon and do that. Even if you didn't purchase your book on Amazon, you can still leave a review there. If you purchased it somewhere else or you got it from a friend or something like that, you can definitely still leave a review on Amazon. It helps us to let other teachers know about it. Our publisher will push it more once we get more reviews on it. Also, more reviews just makes people more likely to trust the book and purchase a copy. So it would be very, very helpful if you would be willing to leave a review. And if you haven't grabbed your copy yet, I would be honored if you do decide to read the book. I know you don't have a ton of free time, but if you chose this as one of your books to read, I promise I don't want to let you down. That's why I made sure this book, my editor helped me take off like 10,000 words and yet still keep all the concepts in there. It's a quick read. The actual, like on Amazon, it says over 200 pages, but it's because that includes like the bibliography. There was a lot of research that went into it, acknowledgments, all those other pages. It's actually under 200 pages, the content of the book. And there are some some graphics and everything too. So it's a pretty quick read. So if you haven't grabbed your copy, there's a Kindle version if you want. You can also grab a physical copy. If you're watching on the app or somewhere, you'll see I'm holding it up. It has a beautiful glossy cover. I love it. You can grab this physical copy on Amazon, Target, or Barnes & Noble. So you actually don't have to get it from Amazon if you would prefer to get it somewhere else. It's not in store, I don't believe, but you could get it on Target or Barnes & Noble online. The other great thing is when you get your book, make sure that you go to the QR code in the book. Throughout the book, there's a QR code in there. So if you have a copy and you haven't done this yet, there's a QR code throughout the book that you're going to want to scan and just fill out the quick form, because what it does is it unlocks all the bonus content for you. You're going to get the PDF workbook that has all the exercises that are going to help you apply what you learn in the book. So the book is kind of like your playbook, your guidebook, your reference book. And then the workbook is where you put it into action. And you're going to get a PDF workbook. You can print it out if you like. And you will also unlock access to a special section in the app where if you went to the Educate and Rejuvenate app in the App Store and just download it, you wouldn't have access to it. But when you fill out that form that you only get access to if you purchase a copy of the book, you will unlock another whole course. And that includes all the replays for the book club calls that we're doing, which you can join live anytime now through the end of December 2024. But you'll also get all the replays if you're listening to this after, or if you aren't able to make a call live, you'll get all the replays for the book club where I'm chatting with teachers. We're talking about the concepts, I'm answering questions, all of that. I also went through the workbook and took a screen sharing video of every exercise to kind of talk you through my tips for it, the intention of the exercise, how to do it. So really, when you purchase the book, it's like purchasing a full course. So again, if you have not grabbed your copy yet, go to Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble online, snag your copy. And then if you love it, make sure to leave a review on Amazon. We're making it worth your while because we are going to be giving away stuff to our entire email list, resources when we hit each tier. So when we hit 50 reviews, when we hit 75 reviews, when we hit 100 reviews, and continued after that, we will send something to our email list, a free product, or if you're in the Educate and Rejuvenate Club, we're doing a Starbucks card since you already have access to all our products, so that we reward you for the collective effort of all of us together getting the reviews on Amazon. Okay, I'm almost done, I promise. We also, speaking of the Educate and Rejuvenate app, right? I was talking about how you unlock all that extra content if you purchase the book, but no matter what, I think you should go and download the Educate and Rejuvenate app for free, right? Because every week we are putting a coaching clip of the week in there that everybody can enjoy. And there are a couple free meditations and some other fun things happening in there, including our upcoming Winter Educate and Rejuvenate 2024 conference. So this is so exciting because in the past, our winter conference has been members only, but this time we are mixing things up. It's going to be closer to a summer event, but not quite as big. We're going to have more like 25 speakers, but we're going to have an incredible keynote who's already signed the contract, already locked in, funny keynote. And then I will be presenting, of course. We'll have a live with some of the presenters. You have all the pre-recorded sessions. We're going to have a fun dance yoga blend class. It's going to be such a great time. It's a way to help you refresh at the end of winter break and into the beginning of the school year so you can set your New Year goals and take on 2025 the way you would like to. So stay tuned. We are doing the reveal party where we'll reveal the speaker lineup, the keynote, all the fun stuff. So make sure to mark your calendars for November 19th for the reveal party. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Today's interview is with Giselle from Kids Yoga Stories, which was founded in 2012 through her travels and teaching grades K through 5 in Guatemala, Australia, Canada, and the United States. Giselle witnessed the need to address childhood illiteracy, obesity, and stress. She blended her passions of yoga, mindfulness, and education to create books, card decks, courses, and educational resources to bring the benefits of yoga to children everywhere. The pandemic and the rise in mental health issues in children, as well as teacher burnout, has made the Kids Yoga Stories mission even more critical and timely. They continue to grow and expand, providing weekly free resources and hundreds of yoga products available for purchase on their site. Okay, you're going to love everything Giselle had to share today, so let's dive in. Okay, friends, I am so thrilled to be here today with Giselle from Kids Yoga Stories. I'm so excited to have you here. We've been chatting about this for a few weeks. And the funny thing is, we were chatting before we started recording. And then we actually did an episode for her show as well. So make sure you check that out. But we've been kind of around the same circles for a while and we're just now connecting. And so we're thrilled that it's finally happened. So welcome to Educate and Rejuvenate the podcast.
Thank you so much, Kelsey. It's so great to be here.
Can you tell our listeners a bit about you and what you do and why you're so passionate about yoga and teaching kids?
Right. We have such similar backgrounds that you'll hear in the story. So, first of all, I've always worked with children, right? Probably similar to you, that I grew up
Mhm.
as a daycare leader and then was a figure skating coach. Then I became a teacher. And so it was always a thread in my life. At the same time, I always had a thread of yoga. So I grew up in the middle of Canada. My mom used to practice yoga on the television on the farm we lived in. And then when I used to come home, when I was teaching in Guatemala, I'd come home and mom and I would do practice yoga together. And then I took my yoga teacher training in Australia when I was living there. That was 14 years ago. So I always had this thread of working with kids, with children and yoga. And really, kids' yoga stories, I brought my passions together when my daughter was 9 months old. And my passions of education and yoga and traveling and being with her. So that's where it kind of all came together. And I'm really after all these years, our mission is still very clear that we're here to help children regulate. They help them manage their big emotions and help them be ready to learn. And it just so happens that I share quite openly in my community that the parenting journey has been a struggle. Even with my education background, my experience, it
Mhm.
certainly was. She showed up as a much different person than I could have ever imagined, but she's definitely my muse. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey. So thanks for asking, and I look forward to get to know you and your community as well.
I love hearing that, and the crazy thing is we both started our companies when our little ones were about the same age. As you were
Right.
saying that, I'm like, "That's so crazy." I love it.
Mhm.
And I love that yoga always had a thread through your life and that you had that as a child. Like, I told you this when we were emailing, but I just really discovered yoga, like, this year, and I
Yeah.
wish I would have had it earlier, but now my daughter has it, and she loves it, and it's so incredible. So
Yeah.
amazing. I cannot wait
Yeah.
for us to chat today about yoga and instruction. And I know there might be some people here listening who are like, I might have been like a year ago, where it's like, I mean, yeah, yoga, that's just like doing some poses. It's like exercise that doesn't burn enough calories. It's
Right.
so much more than that.
So much more than that. Right.
First of all, I want to talk about why yoga is beneficial to be added into our instruction. But also, if you don't mind, I'd like to even rewind a little bit and be like, why is yoga beneficial just like in general? Like,
Yeah.
what is yoga? If you were to
Right.
define it and, like, why is
Yes.
it beneficial?
Right. Well, let's think about that question about the why, right? And it just came
Mhm.
to me as you were talking there, sort of why not actually? So for the way I think about yoga as a lifestyle, and I think about if
Mhm.
someone came to me as a teacher or parent and said, "I have a magic tool for you that's going to help you and your child, by the way, build strength and flexibility. It's going to help you with focus and attention. It's going to help you manage your big emotions, help you be calm and relaxed, right? And be ready to learn, and it's not going to cost anything, and it's not going to take up time." And, if someone said that to you, what would you say? Yes, yes,
Yeah.
please. Where do I sign up, right? And so yoga encompasses, and this is the thing, exactly what you're speaking about. There's a myth about yoga, right? And so we see on the front covers of magazines, or we see on social media these beautiful postures, and that certainly has been the thread of how it first came to the Western culture because it's something that is
Mhm.
accessible for all of us. But really, yoga also encompasses breathing
Mhm.
exercises, mindfulness, meditation, positive affirmations, karma yoga, which is the community service. So there's a lot of pieces.
Mhm.
And that's the beautiful thing about the potpourri of these practices that
Yeah.
5,000 years ago, this is not something that was invented a few years ago. This is not, has been around for thousands of years and it will still continue on. It's not a trend.
Yes.
It's not a fad. It's not
It's
something,
not.
that you can dabble into if you want to. You can do it regularly. You can say how this works, and it works through good times, through bad times, through pandemics, through big behaviors, through mental health, through exciting. I know it works on everything, right? And so
Right.
for me, when you ask me that question, why add it? I'm kind of thinking, well, why not? Why couldn't
Why
you?
not?
Why shouldn't
Yeah.
you? You know?
Yeah, and what I love is how you described about how yoga is not just poses, and it's not even like what you think about with yoga, like, "Oh, I'm going to a class and doing yoga." I mean, I love
Yeah,
that, but it's so much
yeah,
more than that. It's like a lifestyle, it's a mindset, it's mindfulness, and so I didn't even realize that, like, I was doing yoga. I just didn't know it was yoga, right? Because like, I've
right.
been into mindfulness and meditation for years, but not like
Yeah.
yoga specifically, and so I it was actually earlier this year I interviewed Brett Larkin for the podcast. Do you know her?
No.
She's another person in the yoga world online, and I wasn't really doing yoga, but then when I was interviewing her, I'm like, "Wait, this is a lot of what I say too, but it's yoga." And that really got me curious, you know? So it's kind of funny. All of you listening, you should go back and listen to that episode because that was before I, like, really dove into yoga this year. But yeah, it's just so fascinating how yoga can transform your life, and especially when you understand, like, all the different pieces of it, and there's so much more to understand. I'm not saying I understand all of it because it's like
Yeah.
it's a journey, right?
Well, I think of it I often think about is I used to date a surfer way back when, my old
Uh-huh.
the old days before I got married, and one thing about I learned about hanging out with surfers is that they would go out on the waves, right? The 100th wave would be one that they would catch, right? And then from that moment, that was it. That was like it made their day, and it would keep them coming back to
Mm,
surfing. And the same with
yeah.
yoga. You may go to a yoga class, or you may have a mindful moment, or you may just be outside waiting for the bus and watch the leaves, whatever. Not every time we call them sort of yoga miracles, right? And not
Mhm.
every time are you going to have those like transformational moments. But when you do, gosh, you want to keep coming back for more. I mean,
Oh,
how many
yeah.
people have you heard say that if they're going to classes in the resting pose at the end, once they're in that moment and they have a connection in tune with themselves that brings you
Mhm.
tears or joy or
Yeah.
whatever it is for you, then you want everybody to experience that, including children,
You
right?
do, and that's why we do wanna add it into our instruction, right? So we've started talking about how that's so beneficial and that, they can be practicing mindfulness, and it helps with behaviors, and it helps with flexibility, and it helps with, like, all those things you were naming. But let's talk about that a little bit more. How is it beneficial to our instruction when we incorporate yoga in, even if we don't have a lot of time?
Yeah. Yeah, well, we can do it in quick little ways, right? So, as a teacher's substitute last year, I practiced chair yoga poses. So, we have these little chair cards, and I would superimpose them on the whiteboard. So, you
Oh,
just
fun.
take out a few little in our chair cards, right? You take out a few of these, and they're just to bend and stretch, and they help with transitions,
Fun.
right? Because there's a lot of sitting more so than when we were younger, right? And so that
Mhm.
helps for that. Then we have, breathing. So important. There's I think there's about 30 in here. So different ways you can breathe in a creative ways for young children and also for middle schoolers and for adults too. But for us to take a moment just to breathe and calm our nervous system before a test or before we start the day or
I love
before we
those.
come back from recess or whatever, or even with mindfulness is practicing
Yeah.
maybe coming in and just doing like a 2 minutes of silence or a mindfulness practice where you're tuning into the sounds around you. Or I play a lot of a rainbow game. So
Mhm.
noticing the red and then the orange and then the yellow, just these little fun snippets. It doesn't have to be a lot. It happens within transitions. Certainly, why not help them with their focus and attention and strength and imagining big emotions, right?
Why not? I love it. I love the cards like that. Like, I have a set of cards kind of like that. Are those your cards that
Yes, yes,
you made
yes,
those? Okay,
yes.
I need to get those. Where do you get them?
On Amazon or on our shop, Kids Yoga Stories.
Amazing.
Yes.
Those look so good. I think having something like that where it's, like, easy to be like, "Okay, I have a transition. I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna draw it out," and the kids have so much fun, like, when I get out some affirmation cards or mindfulness cards or whatever, and the kids will pull one out, and these are my
Yeah,
kids at home, but you could totally do it in your classroom too. They love, like, "Oh, I wanna be the one to do it," and then
yeah,
they all get to do it together, and it uplifts the entire mood, the entire vibe of the classroom. Or your
yeah,
home. For me, it's my home. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing too, we're making it playful because you think about an adult class different than a children's yoga experience, right?
right.
It's to make it more active and playful. So one of the things it makes me think of is that I created this 5 C's framework back when my daughter
Oh, I
was
love
little.
it.
So so just some context, I was, alluding to that my daughter was as a special little spirit, and, it was tough, and like I said, I didn't feel fit for the the experience as a young parent when she was young. And so there was a point where I thought, okay, I've read almost every book. I've been to every webinar. Excuse me. And I felt like I've stretched the planet on what I could do to help my child, right? And
Mhm.
then I thought, I need to step back. I need to step back and figure out, okay, how am I going to get through this experience so it's helpful for me and her? And what more details? She was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression. So it was a loud house, right? And she was very dysregulated.
Mhm.
So the first one I thought is calm, C for calm, right? And so it really is, and you and I share this similarity, is starting with us, like
Mhm.
putting aside all the learnings, the webinars, the books, strategies, everything. But really, the most important thing is to start with us. And for me, I remember this time years ago where I had an opportunity to go with some girlfriends to New Orleans for the weekend. And I thought, okay, this is when I come back, it's a line in the sand. Either I'm going to sign up for therapy or try meditation. And I did. I
Mhm.
started meditation as soon as I got back, and I did it every day for 3 years. And it really, Kelsey, was the turning point for me. Like, if
Oh,
just
yeah.
to sit silently by myself in the morning, and my daughter would sometimes come and sit with me or not. And even if it was for 3 seconds, but the ripple effect was extraordinary. So, in any case, so with the meditation, I feel like that made the biggest difference to my health and wellness as a parent, right? And
Yes.
it brought us closer together. So that's the first thing, is our own calm. The second thing is about getting curious. And this is, piece of being mindful is,
Mhm.
okay, getting curious about using a beginner's mind of how do we learn about this yoga and mindfulness practice? How do we find out what's under the surface? How do we look after ourselves? How do we understand our child better? That's where the curiosity comes through. The third step is connect. How do we find out what our needs are, our preferences, our child's, and talking to them? That Ross Green, I love his collaborative problem solving technique where you sit with a child and you just say, I can see you're having a really hard time. What's up? So that connection piece is so important. And then fourthly is about being creative, is engaging the children, making it fun, and involving them in the practices. And number five is commit. So reflecting and learning and being consistent and committing to the practice. So I think before we even start to look at how do we incorporate this into our homeschooling or classroom, is going through those steps of thinking, what am I interested in? What is the
Mhm.
child interested in? So for one person, you've been practicing, Kelsey, you've been going to yoga classes and practicing asanas,
Mhm.
the physical postures. So that might be really fun to introduce in your homeschool
Mhm.
curriculum. However,
Right.
another parent might think, well, you know what? I love walking through nature and sitting on a stump and doing some breathing practices.
Mhm.
I'm going to involve my child in that practice. Or another
Yeah.
mother or another parent might say, you know what? I prefer to organize community service projects. And that's really what we want to do. Right. And that can happen both for teachers and educators, but it has to
Yeah.
come from your own passion and follow the needs and preferences of your children. So there isn't a one size fits all. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. Like, you're cultivating it to yourself and the kids so it can be the most successful experience for you because everybody's different, right? And what they need.
Right. Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it, and I love how you put those 5 Cs together. We're both teachers, right? So we love that
Yes.
alliteration of 5 Cs, right?
Yes.
Makes it
Yes.
easy to remember. So tell us a little bit about how you utilize those, like, so you say you start with all those, right? And then that's when you look at what is it you need, what is it the kids need. Can you give some, like, examples of that? Like, maybe from people you've worked with or yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think about, okay, one of my favorite stories is a woman named Amy, and she's a school counselor. And she went through the same process and was thinking, okay, for her, mindfulness was the most important thing that she felt that she did
Mhm.
well. She felt comfortable because the children can tell, right? They can tell if you're not really into something. Like I
Right.
remember I used to take my daughter to karate because my husband wanted me to. And my daughter could tell I didn't want to take her to karate. I couldn't. It wasn't something I was passionate about. So it's the same thing. Like children know if you're not really into something.
Right.
And so she started Monday morning announcements and adding mindfulness, right? And so it was her little activities every Monday would patch out to the entire school. She would give this other teachers the mindful activity so they could practice it during the week. So come, a few months into school, and there was a situation she describes, and it's one of these moments, right, where you're hearing from
Mm.
somebody and they catch you. I won't be able to do it justice, but when she tells it, it's extraordinary. She was saying one day there was a little friend fell off the playground and he was taken away in an
Mm.
ambulance. And so you can
Oh.
imagine the young how what happens with the children. And so the principal
Yeah.
said to Amy, please go down the hall. There's 50 children and teachers, and everybody is frantic and upset and crying, the whole thing. So she went down there and she just put up her finger and started to do the 8 breath. They had done this
Mm.
within their Monday morning announcements, right? All 50 children and the teachers all stopped and started to trace their breath. So inhaling in, exhaling out through the 8. And that was it. And in that moment, imagine the shift of energy from frantic and scared to a sense of calm. In that moment, she thought, I am meant to do this work. In her 25 years
Mhm.
of school counseling, that was like the pinnacle moment of this makes a difference. The simplicity of an 8, right? So you
And
imagine,
that's so powerful. Like,
right? Yeah. And that would change the trajectory of that moment, right? Because
yeah,
imagine those children, there's no way they would be ready to learn, right? But by doing something
right.
simple as taking a breath together, but the collective action of the breath together, that's just extraordinary.
It really is like magic almost. You have to experience that like, that collective energy of doing it together, like meditating together or breathing together. And especially when they were in such a stressful moment and these kids and these grown-ups, the teachers were able to come together and do the 8 breathing. And what made that possible is that they knew what to do, right? That they had
Yes.
almost prepared ahead of time for a little bit more stressful situation to know what to do in that moment. And that's what I think teaching these breathing exercises, mindfulness practices, meditation is so powerful. I talk about that in my book too because I love it so much. But
Yeah.
all of these things, you never know when it's going to come in. I mean, it always comes in handy, but especially that moment where all the kids are stressed and they could have spiraled, but instead they were able to do that breathing exercise. Oh, that's such a powerful example.
Yeah. And it's the same like I was saying about you in your classes. Like I'm no doubt your
Mhm.
child is also you were saying now she's practicing yoga with you, like, she's gonna
Yeah.
feel the benefits that you're going through, the more you're sharing about it, you're coming home and you're excited or you're refreshed or you're energized or calm or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you're feeling, right? And so if we're sharing that journey and it's either something that teachers and counselors, pediatric therapists start from day one, and it is what it is, and that's just what we do,
Mhm.
and so there's an expectation that this is how we roll here. This is what we're
Yeah.
doing. Or if it's something that's new and fresh for you, then you're just describing it and talking to them about it. Or like I'll say, so of course I have a daughter who wants nothing to do with yoga and mindfulness. That's how that goes in my household. We are not the mom daughter on Instagram practicing postures and things together. That's not what that happens in this house. But at the same time, in her own way, I've heard
Yeah.
people say that she'll talk to others. So when she had
Mhm.
a school counselor in elementary, this counselor used to say to me that she used to coach another little girl about how to take deep breaths. Or when she was having a sleepover, I heard that one of her friends couldn't sleep, and she was telling the little girl about some breathing practices to get back to sleep. And so you don't even know. I think that's the key there is we don't even know the seed that we're planting, right?
And it's so powerful that, like you said, maybe you and your daughter, you're not on Instagram doing poses together, but she's doing it in her own way. And that kind of ties back to what we were talking about with what does it look like for you? What does it look like for the kids? And sometimes it's going to look different for each one of us, how we practice, how we come back to ourselves. But like by sharing how you do it, it still can they still benefit from it, whether you see it immediately or not. So whether your students are like my oldest, he would roll my eyes at like, oh, let's do a meditation. Like my younger two will do it, but my oldest two's like, no, mom. So,
Yes.
but I'm
Right.
sure he's still benefiting from it.
Yeah.
He still is learning and he'll figure out his way.
I think that's a thing that you, bring up a good point about buy-in. So, definitely is
Mhm.
something we hear in our Kids Yoga Stories community a lot is how do you get buy-in in a classroom or with your own kiddos, whatever, and I think that's where the confidence to have your own journey first and carry on with that, and that will absolutely have a ripple effect. Like I was explaining that I when I would sit silently in the morning, absolutely it had ripple effect. The tantrums would start maybe a few hours later in the day, then not right away or, but those still had big impact, right? And it helped me be calm in the face of tantrums for longer. I'm not saying it's a
Yeah.
magic that it takes everything away. It takes the edge off,
Yeah.
It just takes the edge off some of these um, bigger problems or bigger issues or bigger
Yeah.
emotions that we are dealing with, especially right now as adults. It's a lot. It's a lot for
It
kids,
is a lot
for
for
grown-ups, yeah,
everybody.
for
Life is
everybody.
crazy right now.
Yeah, crazy. And this is a
Yeah, and I
way
feel
to slow down, right?
exactly. And I feel like it is a lot of, yeah, we're going to still get dysregulated. We're going to notice,
Mhm.
oh, yeah, it's not a magic pill. But the fact that we even noticed is huge. Like, oh, I'm dysregulated. It's not like, oh, I can't believe I'm dysregulated. It's, wow, I actually noticed that I'm dysregulated because before I would just be dysregulated like all the time and I had no clue. How many teachers I've talked to who, when they start learning this stuff, a lot of times it's brand new when they come to our community. And it's really like, oh, wait, I didn't realize that I'm dysregulated like almost all the time, you know? So,
Right.
like, so it's really being like, okay, I'm dysregulated and now I know what to do. Now I know I can do this breathing and it's going to help bring me down. And yes, I'm still going to feel some emotions, but it's going to, like you said, take that edge off. I'm going to be connected. I'm going to know I'm safe, you know?
Yeah. Right. Well, that's reminds me too, thinking about the story about Amy, is that a year later, this was a few months ago. I was in a teacher subbing. I was with some fifth graders and we were all in the gym. The principal was about to give us an assembly, and another teacher stumbled and fell and kind of passed out. And
Man.
she didn't kind of, she did, she passed out. And so
Oh,
the shift of the energy with the fifth graders, everyone was kind of like, wait, what? Like they just it wasn't
yeah.
sure, like, is she okay or not? And so the principal immediately said, okay, everyone back to their classroom. So we had to get up and go back to our classrooms. And I remembered this story of Amy, and I just went to the front of the room because she had been in my classroom before that. And I put an 8 on the board, on the whiteboard, and I just started to follow it. And I just started to breathe myself. And I thought, I've got to get
Mhm.
myself calm before,
Yeah.
'cause for fifth graders, that's a big deal too, right? And so by
Mhm.
doing that, I said, anyone can join or whatever. And then when I'd calm myself down, then I was able to be of service to them. And I just was helping them recognize their feeling, validating where they were at. Some children need to go and walk around. There was other staff members came in, wanted to know if the person was okay. All that, again, it starts with us. So if I was dysregulated and trying to overcompensate, because the other thing too is
Mhm.
we have to notice our triggers. I just lost
Right.
my dad last year and he passed out, so it triggered a memory there. And so you have to notice your
Oh.
own triggers, and that there could be
Mhm.
triggers for the children as well or other staff members, right? But if we're modeling it's okay to take a pause, take a moment, and
Yeah.
then we can be of better service.
Absolutely, and that modeling can be the most powerful thing because when they're like, "Hey," you can tell the kids, "I was dysregulated. I needed to do this." Once you've regulated and you're doing and they'll see you do it before. So, I
Right.
love that you did that, that you took that moment that you needed. And I do feel like I hear from so many teachers, they're like, "Oh, I'm teaching a class. I can't just stop and do this." But it's like, but can you? Maybe you can. Like,
Yeah.
maybe
You don't
questioning
have
that, like, is
yeah,
that
yeah.
30 seconds? You don't
Yeah.
have time not to, right?
You don't have time not to. I agree. Totally
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. Yeah, there was no way I could have rolled over and just tried to move on to the next lesson. There's no
right.
way. They needed to voice their thoughts and feelings
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
I'm sure there were
absolutely.
so much dysregulation and so many big emotions in that
Yeah.
room. So there's
Right.
that collective energy too, where it's like,
Yeah,
by you regulating, you're helping them, like, co-regulating, like,
yes,
regulating together as well.
exactly. Yeah,
Wow,
100%. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks.
we've covered so much ground, and I'm looking at the time, and we haven't even been talking for 30 minutes yet. I'm like, "Really?" I feel like we've covered so much. This has been incredible. Do you have anything else you wanna share before we get into, like, your recommendations for getting started with all of this?
No, I think we might as well think about recommendations. Speaking to what you said before, is there's a lot of obstacles. I want to recognize that a
Mhm.
lot of obstacles, like I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the space, I don't know how to do it, I don't have confidence, right? There's a lot of reasons not to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that through the years we've been doing this work, and we have a school yoga program. So we have folks come in who are teachers, yoga teachers, pediatric therapists, classroom
Mhm.
teachers, homeschoolers. We have a whole breadth of people coming in, and we work with people to create their own customized yoga programs for their situation because we talked about there isn't a one size fits all. And one of
Mhm.
the things people talk about is how do I start, right?
Yeah.
What's the first step that you can't fail to get me going?
Mhm.
Because it can be so overwhelming. You think, okay, great. So that's good for you, Kelsey, because you're going to go at 6 o'clock in the morning to your classes. And oh, that's good for me because I've been doing this for a long time and whatever. But what about
Right.
my situation? And so I can imagine some of your listeners are thinking, okay, I've heard about the benefits, but like, how do I make that work for me? Like, tell me the one thing, And
Yeah.
so I think from all the stories, from all the people going in our program in our community, is the breath. So we have these breathing exercise cards that I alluded to before, but it's as simple as here's that figure eight breath, for example. I'm just showing a card, a figure eight breath card. That's just a picture of a child doing the eight, and then there's instructions on the back. So if there's
I love it.
one thing to start is just practicing different breaths in a creative, fun way and getting the kids and the children involved. And you can't help but get benefit from that, right? In so many
Right.
different ways. But that would be the one thing is start to learn to breathe deeply. And if you're curious more about the science behind it, I love this book called Breath by
Ooh.
James Nestor. He's a journalist and
Mhm.
he talks about the stories behind and the benefits of breathing. So if you're looking for a deeper look at why should we practice
Yeah.
breathing? That's definitely there. But even just right now before our conversation, we never met.
Mhm.
You're
Right.
gonna come to something like this with a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of excitement, right? And just take a
Mhm.
moment hand on heart or both hands on heart and just take a deep breath because we find that in stressful situations, we're high up, we breathe high, shallow. So our breath is usually up here, up in our chest,
Mhm.
and it's all about bringing that breath down. And there's a lot of research, science behind the
Yes.
benefits of calming our nervous system through taking a deep breath.
Oh, I love it, and I love those cards, and let me tell everybody right now, like, when we get off, I'm ordering them on Amazon for my kids, so you should all join
Mhm.
me. Let's
Yeah, I
all
love
use
it.
those awesome
Yeah.
breathing exercise cards. So thank you, Giselle, for your time being here on the show. I love all the strategies that you shared today, and I think that everybody's going to benefit from the conversation that we've had.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey. I so appreciate you.
Thank you for joining me on Educate and Rejuvenate the podcast today. If you love what you heard in this episode, be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you're hungry for even more, be sure to check out the book that I wrote. It's called Educate and Rejuvenate, a 3-step guide to revitalize your teaching, renew your spirit, and reignite your passion for life. It takes everything you learn here on the podcast and that I teach our members inside the Educate and Rejuvenate Club into a guidebook you can refer to again and again. One of our early readers said it was like clarity for her brain. Plus, it's not only a book. With your purchase, you'll get a full PDF guide with exercises and links to videos and more so that you can not only consume but apply everything that you learn. If you're ready to make Educate and Rejuvenate not just a podcast you passively listen to, but a lifestyle that you put into action, it's time to grab your copy on Amazon today. Or head to educateandrejuvenate.com/book to read the first chapter and the introduction today.